Ling Han marveled at the power of his sturdy physique. "Such strength truly serves me well," he muttered. Were it not for his well-trained body, the consumption of origin power from drawing the bow would have reduced the might of his exterminating Dragon Star arrow to a mere shadow of its potential. His thoughts wandered briefly. I wonder if Sword Emperor and the others practiced physical arts as well. With a single motion, he drew the bow, releasing the sunset arrow. At first, the arrow could be tracked by the naked eye, but as it soared for several hundred meters, its speed became a blur, racing like a streak of light, covering the distance in the blink of an eye. Far into the distance, the target he had set up exploded, the rubble scattering like dust in the wind. "The maximum range is 15 kilometers," he murmured, his voice tinged with calculation. "Beyond that, the power and speed begin to diminish, but even from the launch point to that range, the arrow travels in 1/100th of a heartbeat. It's so fast that even the keenest eyes can't follow it." His mind shifted. Advancing to the flower blossom tier has made me more sensitive to impending danger. However, the sensation doesn't tell me exactly where the attack is coming from, nor the form it will take. He chuckled softly at the thought. If not for the Black Tower, I'd have no choice but to spread my origin power across my body in such situations. But against the exterminating Dragon Star arrow, even a spiritual infant tier defense could be shattered. The defense must be concentrated on the vital points, or else I'd be courting my own death. He pondered for a moment before grinning. Thankfully, I've cultivated the iron sheep body technique. Mere mortals cannot threaten me. If I manage to cultivate the diamond tier, I dare say even the exterminating Dragon Star arrow from a spiritual infant tier wouldn't scratch me. The exterminating Dragon Star arrow and the sunset bow were a match forged in the heavens. Together, they formed his ultimate weapon, further enhanced by the Eye of Truth, allowing him to strike down his enemies from thousands of meters away. However, he mused, too few arrows. I must forge more, though the 7th tier rare metals are scarce. Where could I possibly find enough? A sudden disturbance interrupted his thoughts. The carriage was hit with a devastating force and exploded into the air. The 2 coachmen were struck down, their lives extinguished in an instant. As the dust settled, 3 masked figures emerged, their formidable auras suffusing the air like a tempest. "Where are they?" one of the old men barked, his voice a sharp crack of authority. The second elder glanced around. Could it be a diversion, luring us out while they take another path? "Such meticulousness," the third elder remarked, a trace of admiration in his voice. "Even if this Han Lin is not Ling Han, with the 12 Palaces legacy and a divine treasure trove in play, we cannot afford to let him slip away," the first elder said, his tone steely. The other 2 nodded in agreement. "Let us go." In an instant, they sprang into action, leaping backward, their movements as fluid and powerful as the storm. Ling Han, observing from within the Black Tower, knew they had seen through his disguise, though not fully. These were men who did not hesitate, their viciousness evident as they struck to kill without waiting for confirmation. He grimaced. Spiritual infant tier? No matter. He stepped out of the Black Tower, his heart burning with vengeance as he glanced at the lifeless coachman. A cold gleam filled his eyes, and without hesitation he drew the sunset bow, knocking an arrow and activating the Eye of Truth. The 3 figures, now mere specks in the distance, were as clear to him as if they stood before him. With brute force, Ling Han drew the bow, the flood dragon vein of his arm taut, the muscles bulging as if filled with untold power. The exterminating Dragon Star arrow had already been set, the intricate vein-like patterns forming along the shaft of the arrow. As the patterns emerged, the arrow seemed to come alive, its very essence crackling with energy. "Go!" Ling Han shouted softly, releasing his fingers. The arrow shot forth, a streak of light cutting through the air. Without a moment's pause, he knocked a second arrow, drawing the bow once more and releasing it with deadly precision. 3 arrows flew in rapid succession. The immense strain drained his energy, his face paling as the force of each release took its toll. At over 1,000 meters, the 3 old men halted. An overwhelming sense of danger gripped them. Instinctively, they unleashed their origin power, forming shields before them. "Shield!" The first arrow tore through the air with impossible speed, striking the elder in the center. The shield, though conjured with immense power, shattered like glass before the onslaught of the exterminating dragon star arrow, its divine light and veins cutting through with unstoppable force. The elder was struck in the chest, the arrow passing clean through him, his body crumpling to the ground, lifeless. "Seventh brother," the other two shouted in unison, but before they could react, the second arrow was already in flight. The second elder had been prepared, spreading his defense over his vital areas. Despite being struck in the eye, the arrow did not penetrate further, its power reduced by the defensive measures, though he was still grievously injured. "Old fifth!" the third elder cried, but no sooner had he spoken than the third arrow arrived. Reacting in desperation, he crossed his arms over his face, blocking with his origin power. Though his hands and arms were pierced, the arrow's power was greatly diminished, stopping just before it could reach his eye. The entire battle unfolded in mere moments, but the result was undeniable. Of the 3 spiritual infant tier elites, 1 lay dead and 2 were wounded. If anyone were to hear that this feat was accomplished by a flower blossom tier warrior, they would not believe it. The surviving 2 elders stood frozen in place, blood dripping from their wounds. They dared not move, too wary to even remove the arrows lodged in their bodies. Their breaths were shallow, each second feeling like an eternity, as they braced for the possibility of a 4th arrow. The blood of the spiritual infant tier warriors, powerful and corrosive, splattered onto the ground, the impact shaking the very earth beneath them. Translator, Reverie, Editor, Kurisu. After Ling Han drew in several ragged breaths, he tilted his head back and swallowed a mouthful of spiritual liquid. Warmth spread through his meridians like a spring tide, and he once more raised the great bow in his hands. Shoo, shoo, shoo. This time 3 arrows left the string in unbroken succession, each streak of killing light aimed unerringly at the old man, whose eye had already been destroyed. The old man followed the example of his companion, crossing both hands before his face, then channeling origin power to guard his heart and dantian. With such defenses, at worst he would suffer grievous injury, but death should not claim him. The first arrow arrived in the blink of an eye, piercing through the old man's hip. With a thunderous pang, his backbone shattered. Blood sprayed wildly into the air, and his body was actually blasted into 2 separate halves. Yet the vitality of a spiritual infant tier expert was astonishing. So long as death was not instantaneous, life could still be wrested back from the brink. The old man hurriedly stretched out both hands, dragging the 2 severed halves together. Origin power surged like a flood, and flesh and bone began to knit and fuse at once. But in that fleeting instant, a flaw appeared in his defense. "Fifth brother, be careful," the third old man roared in warning. The second arrow shot forth, striking the old man's remaining left eye and bursting out through the back of his skull. The second old man turned his head toward the third old man's direction. Both eyes had already been obliterated. Only 2 bloody holes remained. He dropped to his knees, and the life force within him drained away rapidly, vanishing from his body. Shoo, the third arrow descended, nailing him firmly to the ground. He remained kneeling, yet could no longer fall. Too terrifying! Too terrifying! The sole remaining old man was seized by both shock and fury. Without even catching sight of the enemy, 2 of their number had already perished and 1 had been wounded. He threw back his head and roared, "Who dares shoot arrows from the shadows? Get the hell out here! Show yourself!" Spiritual infant tier warriors were formidable beyond measure. Though separated by thousands of meters, the roar reached Ling Han's ears as if spoken at his side, clear and resonant. Ling Han gave a cold sneer. Compressing his voice into a flat, monotonous tone, he replied, "Was it not you who launched a sneak attack first, seeking to take my life?" "It's you." The old man's eyes flared with realization. What deep schemes! You followed behind the carriage all along, using it as bait. He knew nothing of the Black Tower's existence. In his mind, this explanation was the only one that made sense. You are merely in the flower blossom tier. How can you possess such strength? The old man cried out again. It was utterly inconceivable. 2 of 3 mighty spiritual infant tier elites had been slain in an instant by a flower blossom tier youth, and the sole survivor was gravely wounded. "How did you guess that I was Ling Han?" Ling Han asked calmly. "Ha ha, the whole of Million Treasure City is abuzz with it. Is there anyone who doesn't know?" The old man laughed loudly, clearly attempting to provoke him. Everyone was discussing it. Ling Han's brows knit together. It would not be strange for a handful of people to deduce his identity, but for the entire city to be talking? That was suspicious. Someone had deliberately spread the news. A single name surfaced in his thoughts. Yinlei. He had crushed Yinlei's dreams with his own strength. It was only natural that Yinlei would harbor resentment. By spreading rumors that he was Ling Han, true or false, Yinlei would ensure countless eyes turned toward him. After all, it involved the legacy of the 12 palaces and a divine treasure trove. Faced with such temptation, who would not rather kill by mistake than let a chance slip away? Old man, do you have any last words? Ling Han asked. He was quietly circulating his energy to recover. After releasing 3 more arrows, his body felt as though it had been drained hollow, an intolerable emptiness. The old man did not respond. Clearly, he did not wish to die. All manner of escape plans whirled through his mind. Sadly for him, he did not realize that Ling Han was exhausted at this very moment. Whether fleeing or counterattacking, this was his best opportunity. Yet Ling Han's 6 previous arrows had terrified him to the marrow. How could he dare act rashly? After a short while, Ling Han's origin power recovered sufficiently. He drew the bow once more. Shoo, shoo, shoo. 3 more arrows shot out in succession. Ah! The old man's scream tore through the air. No matter how he defended with all his might, it was futile. The exterminating dragon star arrow was too swift, too unstoppable. Each time an arrow was released, it was as though even heaven and earth paled in its wake. Ling Han summoned Hun Yu and Helian Shun Shui from the Black Tower and said, "Let's go beat the drowning cur." They gave chase at once. The pitiful old man had been struck by 4 arrows, yet he did not dare pull them out to heal himself. He remained on guard against another wave of attacks from Ling Han. Never would he have imagined that Ling Han would charge forward, accompanied by 2 young girls. 2 sharp arrows had pierced through his arms. One had struck his lower abdomen. Another was embedded in the left side of his chest. He looked utterly wretched. Seeing the 3 figures rushing toward him, he was first startled. Then murderous intent surged within him like raging flames. The unknown was the most terrifying. Lacking the eye of truth, he could not see Ling Han's position, nor know when the next arrow would fly. Thus he had only dared defend with every ounce of strength. But now it was different. Ling Han had revealed himself. That invisible threat vanished instantly. At such close range, even if Ling Han raised the bow, he was confident he could dodge the moment the arrow left the string. After all, when an arrow was fired, it went from stillness to extreme speed. There was a process of acceleration. "Brat, die," he roared, brows flaring with towering fury as he charged toward Ling Han. "Ya!" Helian Shun Shui swung her brick, eyes tightly shut. She did not dare look at all, yet she was a heaven-tier elite. Even bereft of memories, her instincts remained. The brick descended with astonishing precision. Pa! The old man was struck heavily. Agonizing pain exploded through him. Already gravely injured, he could not withstand such a blow. His eyes rolled back, and he fainted on the spot. "Wah! You killed him! Ling Han will dislike you!" Hun Yu exclaimed at once. Helian Shun Shui let out a cry and hurled away the brick. She rushed forward and hugged Ling Han tightly. "Han Han, don't dislike me. I'm going to be strangled. I'm going to die." Ling Han stuck out his tongue. This Hainu's brute strength surpassed even spiritual infant-tier warriors. With a casual squeeze, she made his bones crackle loudly, nearly crushing them. Helian Shun Shui hurriedly released him. She picked up the brick again, wearing the expression of one who had been grievously wronged. Ling Han sighed and said, "Who knew? Don't provoke this big girl again, or I truly might die from your mouth." Hun Yu giggled, stuck out her tongue at Helian Shun Shui, and said, "Niu doesn't like her. Stronger than Niu, eats more than Niu, bad." Ling Han delivered the final strike, ending the last old man's life. He then searched the spatial rings of the 3 corpses. A single glance revealed that these men possessed considerable wealth. Several thousand 3-star origin crystals, and a few dozen 4-star origin crystals. Robbery truly earns money faster than refining pills. Have I chosen the wrong profession? He laughed lightly. He retrieved all 9 arrows. Having absorbed the blood of spiritual infant-tier warriors, the arrowheads were now stained with a baleful aura, their killing edge even sharper than before. The combined effect of the exterminating dragon star arrow and the Eye of Truth is truly extraordinary, Ling Han exclaimed. But these were mystical powers. Without supreme might, how could they bear such a title? When two mystical powers were used together, their terror multiplied. Should I return and kill Yinlei? Ling Han pondered.